All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Holler Hour with Cassie and myself. We got some cool news that we wanted to share with you guys first. Before we get to that, we're at the TN Holler, Twitter and Facebook, tnholler.com. We also have all of these awesome hollers that y'all should follow throughout the state. But the cool news, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Nashville Scene put out their Best of Nashville 2020 awards, and we got Best Rabble Rousers. Look
Hell
at
yeah.
that. We are the best rabble rousers online in Nashville, in the Nashville area. Cassie, pretty cool, huh?
I was so stoked to see that. Yeah, I mean, the Nashville Scene always puts out this amazing list every year. They always highlight well-deserving folks from across the state for a variety of categories. So to be highlighted by them today and for this year is really exciting to me.
Yeah, it's nice to know that people are listening and watching, and I just feel like everybody should feel ownership of that. We really are nothing without the people who watch this Holler Hour, the people who share our stuff. It's a really engaged audience. It's growing. And, I personally am deeply appreciative of all the support that we've gotten since we launched in 2019. And, I just, it's nice to be recognized by the scene. I like the scene. So that's another part of it. And then the write-up of it was cool too. They seem to get what we're doing, that it's about accountability, but also about lifting up organizations that are doing great work around here. So appreciate, I think it was Megan who wrote the write-up.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be recognized in that way. Also wanted to mention, while we have people here, we're planning on election night to do a live stream on election night where we'll sort of be live with you guys as the results roll in. Personally, I'm always feeling like we are missing, a place to go to really focus on Tennessee stuff. I mean, obviously people will be watching CNN, MSNBC and Fox for results of the presidential election, but there are so many elections going on throughout the state that night. And, we're going to try to have a lot of the people involved in it right here with us. So, candidates, people who win, people who lose, pundits, analysts. I think it'll be cool. So, Cassie's been pushing hard for it, and I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it'll be really fun. I totally agree. I also look for that. And it's also for someone like me, like I don't have cable, so I'm not going to be watching any of the major cable news sources for election coverage that night. And I think that, if we weren't doing this ourselves, then I'd be looking for something like this to watch something that's Tennessee specific. We've got so many incredible candidates that have a really good shot of winning and actually like changing the shape of the Tennessee legislature and other, more local races across the state. And of course, we've got Marquita Bradshaw, who we'll be watching very closely as well. So we'll be looking to have a lot of those candidates on and just to kind of, talk about, no matter what happens, just kind of where to go from here, I suppose. Just as organizers in the state, there's so many amazing organizers that we want to lift up that evening as well. And just kind of talk about, no matter what happens, hopefully we'll have some good news, but no matter what happens, where do we go?
Well, the good news is that turnout's been great. I voted yesterday. By the way, I want people to know that if they have anything they want to talk to us about, they can message us for the link, reach out, message us for the link. You can jump in, holler at us about anything. But I voted yesterday in Franklin, and, we've been getting messages from people all throughout the state about the long lines, which, massive turnout in Johnson City, picture in Franklin, just all kinds of pictures and videos have been getting sent to us to show us the turnout is good, and a good turnout is good for progressives and people in general. That's why they work so hard at voter suppression, because the more people that vote, the worse it is for Republicans and for people who want to maintain the status quo. So we need new people to get involved, and hopefully that's what's happening all throughout the state.
Yeah, 100%. I'm really excited to see the turnout as well. Of course, we wish that we had some more polling locations, but I think that just based off of what we do have, and from the initial numbers, it looks like we've got really some pretty massively increased turnout so far. So if you haven't gotten out to vote yet, please do. Early voting runs through October 29th.
Right. Vote early. And if you have an absentee ballot, get it back quickly.
As soon as possible.
Send it back right away. Don't wait. It's really, really important that We don't give them a chance to do anything they want to do. I see Ed saying Trump 2020. Okay, Ed, that's your opinion. I do not share it, but you're entitled to it. Another person that shares your opinion, I was able to catch up with yesterday.
Oh,
And I
yes.
wanted to
Old
play this
friends.
video. My old friend Mark Green just happened to be there when I went to vote. I swear I did not stalk him, but I pulled up to the administrative complex in Franklin and I saw a crowd, and sure enough, there was the congressman standing there. And how could I not go up and say something, right? So I did go up and say something, and here's how that went. Let's watch it.
When's the debate with you and Kieran?
I've never seen a congressman do a debate.
So right there,
That's
you know,
such a lie.
he's never seen a congressman do a debate. That's just not true.
No,
Certainly
happens all the time.
happens all the time. There's a ton of primary debates that happened this year. You know, I don't see a lot of cross-party congressional debates. We see them on the Senate level, the governor level. There's no reason they shouldn't be happening between congressional candidates. Kieran wants a debate. I asked Mark for a debate when I ran against him. He said, I'll get back to you on that. Never got back to me. So this idea that like, oh, because there's never been a debate or, you know, there hasn't been one recently, that he shouldn't do one is absurd and it's cowardly. And that's the bottom line of that.
Yeah, totally.
Another event. Appreciate
So he's already running away from me. By the way, I'm wearing a mask, but I think he's already figured out who I am at this point.
You were wearing your Holler hat, right?
No, I was not.
Oh,
No
you
Holler
weren't.
hat. No Holler hat, and I didn't have my Holler iPhone case either. So
Incognito.
I was pretty incognito, yeah, but he knew who I was.
Of course.
Do you ever feel guilty about blocking Medicaid in Tennessee?
So this is something that people need to know about Mark Green. Mark Green was a state senator when Tennessee decided not to expand Medicaid when so many other states did, even though our Republican governor wanted to expand Medicaid here. So Mark Green was a part of a small group that basically took the power to expand Medicaid out of Governor Haslam's hands. And he's a doctor and he should be ashamed of himself.
Yeah.
Keep you up at night?
What you mean is Obamacare. And yes, we don't need it in Tennessee.
Like what, Cassie, I mean, like, what does that even mean? Like, so he changes the label of it and that's supposed to make it less impactful?
Right. I mean, of course, that's how he's going to try to, like, I guess, just get support for or try to cover for why he's not voting for something that would patently help so many people in this state. And literally all it is funding. Like, it's just more money to help, like, fund Medicaid, which would help keep rural hospitals open, which would help more people be insured here in Tennessee. It's ridiculous. Like, it's just more money for Tennesseans. It's our money that, as you say all the time, is being lost. $1 billion a year, I think, is being lost every single year or going to other states. That's like Tennessee taxpayers' money that could be going to citizens here helping us. He voted against it and ties it to Obamacare, and when literally
that in itself is like a racist dog whistle. It's like they just keep calling it Obamacare. Right. It's popular now. It's more popular, than Congress for sure. And, he calls it Obamacare as though that's supposed to turn us off. Meanwhile, you're right. It's free money. It's $1 billion a year. More rural hospitals are closing in states that haven't expanded Medicaid. 300,000 Tennesseans go without coverage because of this. We're number one in medical bankruptcies in the entire country.
Right.
Number one in rural hospital closures per capita. The list goes on. So it's really, really ugly. And, he just wants to call it Obamacare and dismiss it in that way. But, the jig is up on that. People are on to him.
Yeah, we got to head to another event. Thank you.
There's always the guy next to him, the handler. And so him saying thank you to me is like, what? I'm going to turn and run away because he said thank you. Like,
okay. I'll go now. Thanks.
Oh, you said thank you. Okay.
All right.
I'll stop.
Yeah.
300,000 people.
People don't have insurance because of you.
No,
so isn't that not right as a doctor?
It is true. It is true. Him saying it's not true doesn't make it not true. It is true.
Does it have anything to do with you thinking that government programs keep people from a saving knowledge of who God is?
We're going to take off. Right?
See, I always bring that one up because I know that one really bothers him. And you'll see
it's his words.
His words. You'll see the clip in a minute. But we were at when I was running against him, he brought that up. He really didn't like that. So, I know that that's a pressure point because it is what he said. He said it in a Brentwood church to a church group, thinking that he was, off the record, and he just wasn't. And I don't remember how we found that video. I didn't go looking for it. Someone sent it to us, I think. But when I saw it, my jaw just dropped. And he's saying I misquoted him. But the nice thing about video is it never forgets. So you'll see the video here in a minute.
Misquoting that what I said there. Completely
Exactly what you
misquoting.
said.
No, that is not what I
exactly
said.
what you said.
I'll get you a
Word
copy
for word.
That is
Word for word.
I'll get you a copy.
Word for word.
right here.
There's going to be a clip of it right after this.
And so the person who's in need goes,
There's going to be a clip of it right after this. I mean, we know how this goes at this point, right?
Yep.
And you should know too. So let's go ahead and watch this clip of Mark Green in a Brentwood church feeling really comfy, saying what he really thinks.
After this.
and so the person who's in need goes, they look to the government for the answer, not God. And I think in that way, government has done an injustice that's even bigger than just the entitlement, creation of an entitlement welfare state. I think it's even bigger. And in this setting, I'll share the story. I think it interrupts the opportunity for people to come to a saving knowledge of who God is.
So I said, that's what he said. He said, that's not what I said. And there you have it. That's what he said. So he lies, and he does it easily. And that's something we need to know about our congressperson. And let's talk about the content of what's happening here. This is a guy who has a lot of impact on a lot of people in our state and in our country, showing us that he is intentionally blocking programs like Medicaid, keeping people from getting the help that they need, because he is essentially saying that when people suffer, they turn to God, and he is doing his work by forcing them to turn to God rather than the government, and in doing so, keeping 300,000 people from getting the help that they need. I'm appalled by that. I think everybody should be appalled by that, regardless of party. What do you think when you see that?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with all of that. It's truly appalling. And I honestly, and this is not a good thing, but I'm honestly in awe of just how successfully conservatives who are religious have weaponized religion to sell this ideology. It's honestly terrifying. They've been very successful at it. And I think that and it goes back to something that I think you say quite often, Justin, which is about how I think that, no matter what religion we have, but grounded in sort of like a humanism that that a lot of Christians resonate with like the teachings of Jesus, and many other religions can resonate with, just sort of these really human values that we need to be messaging better, just as the left, as progressives, as Democrats, whatever label you want to choose. But it's pretty profound just how successful they've been at that. And that's something that I think that we need to think really hard about how to combat with like actual, ideology that may be, sometimes religious, that will actually help people. It's kind of terrifying.
I see people asking where he's from. He lives in Ashland City. I think he's originally from Mississippi. He's a doctor. He regularly brags about the night that he spent with Saddam Hussein. He was a flight surgeon. I guess he spent some time with him. He talks about it all the time. But one thing people need to know about Mark Green is his Army discharge papers are redacted. Right. And we went to get them when I was running against him. They were completely redacted. He won't unredact them. He's actually particularly sensitive about that too, because when we posted about that, he jumped into our mention on our comments on Facebook.
Oh, I remember that.
Called a constituent a liar randomly. Like we weren't even talking to him. Like we weren't. We just posted about it, and here comes Mark Green, a sitting congressman, jumping in our Facebook comments like, "You're a liar." So he's obviously very sensitive about this stuff. And another thing that people should know about him is he couldn't get a hearing from a Republican-controlled Senate when he was nominated for Army Secretary, and his nomination, went down the drain because of that. I'm also hearing rumors that he's being talked about for governor. So even if you're not in Tennessee's 7th district, this is a guy you need to be aware of, and you need to understand what he's all about. And he's a pretty scary guy. I'm not going to lie. So, definitely keep Mark Green in your mind. Share this clip with anybody you know in the 7th district, because Kiran Sripada is running against him. But to talk about the mentality that we're talking about here and get a little bit of insight into the things that we're talking about, I wanted to bring in our guest here. This is a guy that I follow on Twitter, closely. I follow a lot of people on Twitter, but I don't pay attention to everything all of them say. But David, I'm always interested to see what he has to say because he has a very, very unique perspective on things. David, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. So let me just tee it up by saying David, for a very long time was a Trump supporter. Maybe not for a very long time, but for a couple of years there was a Trump supporter. A couple of years, would you say?
Yes, a couple years. I've always been a Republican before that.
Republican before that, a veteran, supported Trump loudly, and was somebody that was on Twitter, like in people's faces, saying all the things that you hear. And now, as you can see, first of all, he's looking good. And then on top of that, he's got a Biden-Harris shirt. He's a proud Democrat, has made this transition from MAGA troll to Democrat. And, first of all, let me just say, David, it's an amazing thing. And also it does seem to have made you feel better, look better. So I guess let's start by asking you, when did you start? When did this transformation start?
It started actually in 2018. During a time where conservatives were saying they're being shadow banned on Twitter. And what shadow ban is, where they're not getting a lot of engagements, like likes, RTs, things like that. And when that happened, for some reason, normally Trump supporters would troll Hollywood celebrities because,
Right.
Hollywood is always, trying to destroy the American way of life. Trump supporters believe that Trump speaks for them. They believe that he speaks for their conservative American way. And so, a lot of Hollywood celebrities are fighting, rights for others, Democrats, and, they don't understand it. They're fighting for people who don't have the rights as we do. So when that happened, I decided to go after Sarah Silverman and Stephen Colbert. I took their pictures of them wearing Nazi outfits and decided to say, hey, Jack, why are you silencing conservatives? Why are you letting these crazy liberals do whatever they want to do? Sarah actually responded saying, told me about Gallus, where it's not meant to be subjective.
Sarah Silverman.
Correct.
Yeah.
And she was telling me about Gallus, and then I was kind of surprised by that. Normally when you troll celebrity block or can ignore, she responded. And then I kind of thought, she responded, she's Jewish, I'm Jewish, Trump's pro-Israel, why doesn't she like Trump? So I asked her that, she told me why she didn't like it, she actually asked what I did, and I did, and it was actually a respectful conversation. There's no name calling, no arguing as you always see on Twitter, and then I started thinking, why do the liberals believe the crazy things they do? Like, why do they care more about illegal aliens than the military? Why do they want to take their guns away? And she actually responded to both of those, saying, hey, you can actually care about immigrants and the military at the same time. It's not just, and when she said that, a lot of her followers began talking, learning things about seeking asylum, learning things like, hey, there's immigrants in the military being deported, which I was kind of surprised because, only 1% Americans turn in the military. Why would they deport ones to serve? And
so would you say, David, would you say you had all these misconceptions about what Democrats believe?
Definitely.
And what, can you give me the top, what list the top 3 misconceptions that you had about Democrats?
Top 3. Definitely were anti-military. Wanted to make
Anti-military.
They want to take your rights away. They want to take your guns.
Take guns.
And they wanted to either take Christianity, Judaism away, or implement it with atheism or Sharia law.
So you genuinely at the time believed that Democrats want to take your guns, take your religion, and not have a military. Those extreme things, you really believed those things.
Yeah, and they're more, immigration and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with me being a veteran, those were like the top issues to me personally. Meta is like an onion. There's definitely different layers to it, depending upon who you talk to, what they do. Even within the cult, there's like different factions, different policy differences. Like there's one part, and then they say, hey, soldiers need to come home, and there's another part that's like understands foreign policy. If you take some out of the Middle East, and then the Middle East would be destabilized. There's there's like different factions. But when it comes like abortion, when it comes to religion, the military, the core conservative principles, that's pretty much just throughout the whole thing. And this is why I kind of hard to believe that the Democrat would actually vote for Trump. I mean, I know especially in my own journey, I'm not one to say, hey, it's not possible, but knowing what Democrats actually believe in, compared to what Republicans do, I kind of find it hard to like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and so David, now that you've made this transformation, I know that you've gotten a lot of blowback from people on Twitter, especially. How do you feel? You must have one foot in the other side of things. Also, like, what's your general take on how this election is going to go? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, it's been an amazing journey. I learned a lot of those talking points I've believed for so many years were wrong, and I think I understand why. I still have respect for celebrities and news because I understand why. Because one of the main things about Democrats is they actually fight for those who don't have rights. And as a white person, growing up, I really is much different than growing up as a white person. I don't have to worry about getting killed my job just because of my color, and different things that I've learned over the years, LGBT, it's my choice, or not my choice, sorry, it's my birth, and it's wrong to say, hey, don't use the Bible against them, and give me a sense of empathy and realizing how privileged I am, being a white straight guy. I have all my rights. I can own a gun. I can do all. I can hold in the fact that I don't have to wait hours. There's like so many different things that I've learned these past couple years. It's really
So you
changed my
came into it
worldview.
with your eyes open, and yeah, I mean that's been the amazing thing to watch is how you've like really been introspective and vulnerable about your whole journey. And I just think with transformation stories like this, it's really useful and helpful for people to see how they get embraced. Like I feel like you've been embraced by Democrats for the most part. There's not a whole lot of "I told you so" going on, and I really think that's what we need to do more than anything else is when people make these transformations to not, to not look backwards, to only look forwards.
Nope.
Yeah, for the most part, I definitely been embraced. I think I've been embraced by Democrats for the most part. I know, like far left are Biden. People are like, "Oh, you're still the same," And I get their logic but that's like a whole different ball game. But yeah, for the most part, it's been overwhelmingly receptive and welcoming, and it's definitely helped me give me the strength to speak out. Because yeah, it definitely wasn't easy getting a lot of backlashes and just start talking. And then they thought I'm being paid by Megan thought I was being paid by George Soros, or I was a plant, or even after me personally, different things like that. So it hasn't been an easy journey, but it's definitely been worth it. And when my worldview changed, realizing that was wrong, I saw the con of Trump as well, which made me realize that he is not only is his worldview wrong for America, but he's a con, he's a fraud. He should not, he shouldn't be president.
You started a group. You started a group for people like you. Has that group filled up?
Yeah.
That's good.
Oh, definitely. There's quite definitely has filled up, and it's a safe space for them because of stuff that I went through. And I know people are paying to say, hey, they don't want to support Trump, especially family members. friends that support Trump, online activists, and it is sort of cult-like, very cult-like, leaving it. So I wanted people to know, hey, I'm not the only one, and I'm far from the only one that doesn't support Trump anymore. And I mean, a safe space where we can
Well,
talk
he
and
he had a
share our
very
stories.
he had a very slim margin, and if there's enough like you that have come around, I think he's in trouble. I think that's probably why he knows he needs to cheat
yeah.
rather than try to win. David, I appreciate you coming on here. It's really an awesome story. I know that there's people that are hearing it, and even though he does have 90% support in the party, like if he loses 10% of the people, like that'll be enough. So people need to get out and vote. The numbers are high, turnout's high. Have you voted already?
Oh yeah, I voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and
Attaboy.
early voting
Awesome.
in Florida. So excited.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on here. Follow David at David M. Weissman. And we appreciate you coming on always, David. Thanks for doing what you do.
Thanks.
And thank you for having me.
All right. Take care, bud. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like our friend Kristen Grimm, who was a Republican her whole life and ran as a Democrat. It's just really nice to see the crossover stories and people who are willing to be open about it. That's really important voices to lift up, and I mean, that's why even like, I know we have our differences of opinion, or I don't know how you feel exactly about it, but like the Lincoln Project people, which I know there's like this big thing going around that they like kept all the money or whatever. But, I do think that having ex-Republicans speaking out, like there's a reason Biden's running ads with Cindy McCain in them, like it's important to show that crossover matters and crossover happens, and it's a bridge for other people.
Yeah. I think the part that's like important to me about that, and yeah, I think at least for me, the Lincoln Project would be, there are other facets of that I know people have disagreements on, but I think the really amazing thing, about David and other folks, our friend Kristen, and there are lots of folks who just the ability for people to like be vulnerable and to be open to new information. And I mean, that's a really hard thing to do. I mean, David was talking about how it's like, how it is cult-like, at least for, especially the Trumpist, like super MAGA fans, like that really is, there are a lot of like similarities with like a cult mentality, to that sort of really stringent, ideology. And that's really hard. Like, I think that like, David and anybody else that was in that vein really should just be commended for being able to examine their own beliefs, to be open as he was, to sit what Sarah Silverman was saying to him on Twitter, which is amazing. Like, that's just, I mean, of course, I totally agree that sort of transformation should be celebrated. And like the reasons for it of like being open, being willing to be open and vulnerable and question your own beliefs, like preconceived notions, is something that should always be commended.
Absolutely. So thank you for coming on. I know David's audio wasn't great, so thank you all for hanging in there with that. Just a few other things to mention before we move on to the weekend here is that the governor is in quarantine after not wearing a mask. Now he's in quarantine. A member of his security detail has COVID. Also, Jim Hammond, the sheriff in Chattanooga, has COVID after basically saying masks are unnecessary. And, here's a bunch of Republicans at the Knox County Republican dinner, not wearing masks, huddled up, of course, just tempting fate. They just don't get it. They don't care. And, I think more than anything else, like, let's just get somebody in there who actually cares.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like just someone who has even like a modicum of empathy would be incredibly useful. I mean, of course, there are lots of systemic changes that need to happen, but he's so dangerous for so many reasons. So I really encourage everybody that's listening, if you haven't voted yet, I know I'm waiting for the lines to die down maybe a little bit. So that's when I'm going to vote. I'm going to early vote, but I'm going to go.
Hopefully they don't.
Well, yeah, I mean, but like, I think the day one, were probably the longest. I agree with that sentiment completely. Like, hopefully they're strong the entire time, but just for COVID reasons, going to try to find a time that's maybe a little less so. But yeah, I'll be early voting. So I encourage everybody else to do that as well, as we talked about at the beginning of the program. And Yeah, and also like I've been checking the DMs. If folks want to call in, I'm still checking them.
Yeah.
So please just DM, which direct message our Twitter or Facebook page if you want to come on and talk to us about things that are important to you. This is your hour. Yeah, I see Shady's talking about no one from the GOP mentioned Herman Cain. I
Right.
know, it's crazy. Who's
Right.
speaking from beyond the
Right.
beyond
He's
the
still tweeting
grave
about that
on
masks
Twitter.
don't matter. He's dead. COVID killed him. And he's
Yeah.
like, no, masks don't matter. Still not going to believe it. It's just
It's
unbelievable.
beyond parody.
I don't like the calling it a death cult thing, but sometimes if the shoe fits, you got to
I
wear it.
mean,
It's just wild.
that's literally what's happening.
We also had a mayor die here, Manchester Mayor Lonnie Norman.
Right.
I don't know what his feelings were about the virus. We've got hospitalizations spiking again here. This thing has not gone away, and we're just acting like it has. And that's a dissonance, a disconnect that is really hard to square. The other thing that's going on, obviously, is the judges, and Marsha Blackburn has some thoughts about packing the court. And I don't know if you saw her. Did you see her speak out about that?
I saw something written about it, but I didn't watch the video.
Here's Marsha on packing the court.
Court packing might be a new term in your lexicon. And it is one of those DC terms. Here's what it means. For 150 years.
I like how she talks to us. She talks to everybody like we're 6 years old. Right? Like everything she says is like, it's like she's talking to 6-year-olds.
To the term of an elected official, such as a president.
An elected official, in case you don't know what that, such as a president, yeah. In case you don't know what an elected official is.
For example.
Expand a court in order to get their way legislatively, because they know the legislature is not going to do what they want. Now, you've been hearing about...
See, it's like they completely ignore what they did.
Yeah.
Like they want to act like the rules changing is just starting now.
Right.
Like they haven't been changing the rules for 40 years.
Yeah.
Like they haven't been trampling the Constitution. Like and their whole thing is, well, we had the Senate when he nominated the judge. Okay, so is that what we're now establishing, that the only way you're going to get a judge pass is if you control the Senate and the presidency? So no president that doesn't control the Senate should ever
should ever even bring it up.
Why even bother, right? Like they're just not going to approve it. Like so and it's also against what they said. Like their words were, hold me to it. We're not going to confirm in an election year. Now we're literally about to confirm a judge in a week before the election, maybe just days before an election. It's so gross. And so, yes. And the reason that they're upset about the idea of packing, what they call packing the court or stacking the court or changing the court, is because it is constitutionally allowed. The Constitution does not say there have to be 9 Supreme Court justices. There have been different numbers at different times. So, even though it's against the norms, they've shattered all the norms. It's not against the Constitution to change the amount of justices.
Right. I think I think that's so important to remember. And I think it's also like that history, the times when the number of justices on the court changed was actually a period that like we may be, and that's could potentially be relatively similar to a period that we're entering right now, where the number was changed a number of times over within not that long of an amount of time. And it was a time when we also were able to separate the idea, which I think is really important. And I would be curious to hear your thoughts on this, but I personally think it's very important to separate the idea that the court is different than politics, that the law is apolitical, because it's not, and I think that the idea of like trying to realize that those two things are inextricable, and that the court, for most of its history, has been a reactionary institution. A lot of people remember like the Warren Court and kind of elevated to the position of it being this sort of thing that protects the minority from majority rule. Yeah, but for most of its history, it hasn't been that.
That's what it was supposed to be. And I, growing up, always thought, oh, the court's just not political. But now you get older and you realize everything's political.
Right.
The idea that anything is not political is just on its face ridiculous. Our institutions are only as good as the people who run them. Right. And we're now at a point where we're very far down the wormhole. And it didn't start with Trump. Like people say Trump is a symptom, not a cause. It's absolutely true. Like Trump, he grew out of the Republican Party, which stopped caring about such things a long time ago. And, it starts with having a voter base that doesn't care about it either. So, the Republican Party on the whole together has made a deal with themselves, and they just want control. They want power. They don't care what they have to do to take it. And the way that they cover for it is by saying that's what we want. They sit there and they think, oh, Democrats just want power. They're willing to do anything.
Yeah, totally.
The only information they get is from, Limbaugh, Hannity, all the Trump, the people that are telling them all of these things. And it's really tough to compete with. It's kind of why we started the Holler. But, it's a dangerous, scary position to be in, because we're now coming up on an election where we have a president who isn't going to respect the results. He's going to try to say it was rigged. And what happens? And I don't think anybody knows the answer to that, because there are so many enablers in place to help him do this. I don't know what's going to happen that night. The machinations of a president refusing to concede, calling the results into question. You're going to have a few, if it's close enough, you're going to have a few state legislatures that are going to have a decision to make whether or not they're going to try to take it into their own hands and send electors for somebody that didn't earn them. And I think we both know, having spent enough time in this state, that if it ever came down to the Tennessee state legislature to make that decision, heaven help us, we would be completely screwed. There is zero chance that this Tennessee state legislature would do the right thing. And so if the state legislatures in those states are anything like ours, we're in real trouble.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that's such a good thing to focus on. I mean, it's like if it went, this is getting a little nitty gritty, but if there was the potential for it to go to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, then the Supreme Court would probably take it, because their court is perceived as being a little less conservative. But if it went to like Wisconsin or Michigan, then they would bump it down to the lower courts, because they would want the state to make that call. But if it did end up in the Supreme Court, with the makeup that it has now, when Amy Coney Barrett,
forget it,
is confirmed, like we will have 3 justices on the court that worked on Bush v. Gore. And that's
exactly right.
Yeah, which is really terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. We've got 3 Supreme Court justices now who were involved with stopping a recount, where we would have figured out probably that Al Gore got more votes than George W. Bush. So,
which I gotta say,
the country, Al Gore conceded, but he could easily have stopped. He has said, no, I'm not conceding. And
he should have fought more. I mean, we don't need to relitigate that, but I think he should have fought more. Just like I do think that there could be, the Democrats are in a tough position right now in the Senate, but I really wish that they hadn't legitimized this process, that, they could have decided not to show up, and legitimize it at all.
Yeah.
That would have been a powerful statement, I think. And there are also lots of ways to gum up the system to try to push this, because Mitch McConnell is running with he has very little margin of error in trying to push this through with where they're at right now. But with where they're at, unless Democrats do something, they will get it through before the election. But they could gum up the system in a way that would push it into the lame duck, which would cost the Republicans political power. And so I really am bemoaning the fact that Democrats in the Senate are not using every tool to their advantage. Obviously, they can't create more votes, but there are tools that they could use. And that's something that I really wish that they were doing.
Well, they should be doing. I mean, the time for keeping the gloves on is over.
Right.
Time for having bringing a wiffle ball bat to a cannon fight. That's what's been going on. And so that's why I say, hell yes, stack the court, give DC and Puerto Rico statehood, kill the filibuster, do it all. And at the end of the day, they started it. I have a quote here from Dan Rather. He says, can we at least recognize that court packing at all levels of the judiciary has been the Republican playbook for decades? Thank you. Absolutely. Asking for Merrick Garland. That's Dan Rather. That's not some leftist. Yeah, that's Dan Rather. If Dan Rather can't, he's a voice of reason. He's one of the best voices of reason in that we have. And so that's somebody that we need to listen to. Let's see what else she had to say.
Some authoritarian regimes around the globe that have done court packing in order to overtake their countries. Well, here,
I mean, the irony of her talking about authoritarian regime as though like she is not
she's a
complicit.
proto-fascist. Like,
Right. Like, who is she even talking about, you know?
Democrats will not say if they're for or against court packing, which means yes, they're for it. What they're trying to do is to expand the Supreme Court so they can put liberal justices on the Supreme Court so they can achieve their goals of socializing your health care, taking away your private health insurance.
Ugh, I'm just so done with her. Like, you know, I mean, it's just everything they want to do, like everything they accuse us of is what they're doing.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and you know, it's their authoritarian, you know, it's opposite day in Marsha's world all the time.
Mhm.
And the constant labeling of everything as socialist is so tired. I really do think it's
really
lost
is.
its impact. Like, you know, I just think they've really played that one out. And you
They're
know,
making it
especially-
lose all meaning, which is eventually
Yeah,
going to
that's
help
what I mean.
people who actually have those values.
Right. They're making it lose meaning. And I think also what's helped is the pandemic has showed everybody how badly we really do need these programs, and we do
Right.
need to lift people up. You know, 8 million people have slipped into poverty since May. While Trump is bragging about a recovery, most people aren't feeling that. And, you know,
Mhm.
that's why we do need to get people in there that actually care, that actually have empathy and want to do something about it. And, you know, actually Trump now I think has realized that giving people money right now would be a good thing for him to do. He wants a bigger stimulus package. Pelosi wants one. America wants one. But this dude and Marsha are pushing back for a higher amount because they really don't care. And I think they want to be able to say, like, you know, they want to be able to keep saying that they're fiscally responsible.
Fiscally responsible.
Conservatives. Yeah. So, you know, it's all really ugly. Trump voters should be calling McConnell and Marsha Blackburn to help Trump because he's
Mhm.
actually hurting Trump right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's an
Yeah.
alternate facts administration. Amy's exactly right about that. We appreciate you guys sticking with us through all this. Sorry the audio was bad for David. We'll be back Tuesday and Wednesday, but keep in mind on election night, we're going to do a Holler-a-thon to bring results, to have people on here that are candidates that won, that lost, that have thoughts. You guys should join us too. That'll be on election night, November 3rd. You can have the TV on in the background. Just have your laptop open to us, and you know we'll get through it together.
Yeah.
Who knows if we're actually going to have a result that night? But
Definitely. Very possible
yeah, at least
that we won't.
we can process what's going on, and hopefully we will have a result. That would be nice.
It would be nice. Yeah.
Holler win. I don't know what time, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well, that's
Keep an eye out.
TBD.
Keep an eye out for a Cassie graphic. Halloween. Oh, that's pretty good.
Hey, I love that.
Pretty good. Halloween. All right. Thank you for joining us. We will see you guys soon.
Thanks, y'all.